Has this everything bubble actually been a plan to bring about the Great Reset? I know that statement sounds absurd, but today I'll just discuss this topic. I'm not going to argue a particular way, but I will just discuss why I do think that it's possible that this everything bubble that we are now seeing across everything from crypto to housing to stock market and stock prices, how this could actually be a broader plan to get people to want what is talked about in the World Economics Forum Great Reset Agenda. And by the way, this was originally called a conspiracy theory for a while. New World Order has been called a conspiracy theory, even though the Australian government recently stated New World Order in a recent press release. So there's really nothing conspiratorial about this, is what I want to say. So please don't call me a conspiracy theorist. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, although I do like to at least consider possibilities such as these. I do think that it does play out. I do think that it is beneficial to think about these in advance rather than having them catch one by surprise. So all this being said, please don't take this as me saying that I'm a conspiracy theorist or anything, but if you do, I really don't care. Regardless, I put out videos that some are offended at, that some people don't agree with. I'm really not concerned in the grand scheme of things about people liking my videos at the time at which I put them out. As you can see from a lot of my past videos, a lot of them have aged well in terms of things that I've talked about that many people did not think would happen actually coming about. So I will discuss this. Let's raise the question of what would be the best way to bring about the Great Reset agenda of people owning nothing and supposedly being happy. Obviously, people would not be happy in this circumstance. I hope you can realize that. But what would be the best way to bring this about? I would argue that the best way would be to have people actually want something like what people in the World Economic Forum are calling the Great Reset to happen. The best way to bring that about would be to bring on a collapse in the financial markets, in society in general, and therefore offering some sort of solution near the bottom for people, saying, oh, that this is the next way, this is, much better than capitalism, bringing in the Great Reset agenda at that point would be the best way to bring it about. Arguably would just be to get people into such a bad position financially and societally that they would actually be willing to accept something like socialism, and what that would be. Or it'd be more than socialism, but whatever you want to call it, it would be a Marxist agenda. So that would be the best way to bring it about. Now let's look at what has happened in roughly the last 2 years. So end of 2019, early 2020, a new virus breaks out, and there's a response to it like none other in world history, except for perhaps the Spanish flu or the Black Plague. Although it's kind of mysterious because with this virus, initially the only people who are really dying from it are those who have severe existing conditions or elderly, but it really doesn't pose much of a risk for average people. And yet governments around the world lock down, broadly speaking, entire populations, say that you cannot leave your house. You can't go to local stores, you cannot go to small businesses, but you can order from Amazon. You can keep watching Netflix as you normally would. You can keep going to Costco and all these large chain stores, but you cannot go to all of these small businesses and little restaurants that you used to like to go to. No. You have to stay in your house. It's for your own health. It's for the well-being of society, and you cannot go to all of these little restaurants. Now, it does sound absurd in retrospect that, for some reason the virus doesn't spread in Walmart, but it does spread in Joe's little gas and grocery store. And that's why I don't think it's some sort of a coincidence that massive numbers of small businesses went bankrupt in 2020 and 2021, while big corporations the biggest corporations in society continued to gain market cap, and while their competition was essentially eliminated. So that's covering 2020 and 2021. Now let's get to what has happened, roughly speaking, since the bottom of the COVID crash that occurred, because investors began to panic as this virus initially spread, and as governments shut down, they began to realize that, oh no, a lot of GDP might be hurt, a lot of revenue for these individual businesses might be hurt, so therefore should probably start selling, and therefore that created a large crash. The Federal Reserve was able to bring back confidence roughly 6 weeks later and ended that bottom in the market, and roughly since then we've had a very rapid move to the upside. Nothing like what anybody was expecting at that time. It's been very rapid, very sustaining. It's been over a 100% increase at this point for the NASDAQ, for the S&P 500. I think even for the Dow at this point, we're reaching a 100% retracement of that sell-off that we had. So it's been a massive bubble in the stock market. The same thing has occurred in real estate, in junk bonds. Pretty much anything out there you can think of has had a massive run since the March 2020 swoon. But I would argue that this is not really based off of fundamentals or the economy just booming now, because if you look at the real unemployment rate, the U6 unemployment rate, it's still very high. They like to say that it's at all-time lows, or it's going back to where it was pre-pandemic, but if you actually look at the statistics out there, the real unemployment rate, which is the U6 unemployment rate, it's not the U3 unemployment rate, because the U3 unemployment rate excludes all the people who are not looking for work. So obviously with all of the government handouts which have now been available, it's incentivized people not to go back to work. It's also incentivized people who are near the age of retirement to simply retire at this point. So if you look at the economic data, it is not bullish. Really, all the economy has going for it at this point is the Fed's backing, the Fed's installation of confidence in the average consumer's mind. That's really all the economy has going for it at this point. So the next step, the next logical step for the Great Reset to be brought about would be a massive economic crash. And this is obviously what we do not know about yet. This obviously has to remain to be seen whether or not this does happen. But I would say that it would be very likely the government instilling this kind of fear in people's minds. If you see, for example, some black swan event, or black swan event because, they would have known about it before, but you would not have known about it. But if you see something like that come about, in the next few months, or say in the next year, and then suddenly the narrative suddenly shifts from, oh, this is such the best economy, it's a booming economy, you should invest everything in this economy. If it suddenly shifts from that to, oh no, this is the end of the world, this is, this changes everything forever, you should sell, sell. Suddenly, if the narrative shifts like that, I would be very willing to say that this is some sort of engineered, partial collapse, then extravagant, a run-up, and drawing as many people into it as possible, and then an extreme collapse. And then, unfortunately, I would say that they would try to bring in the Great Reset agenda. Now, I know that this is going to sound very conspiracy theorist type in terms of my thinking. However, I don't want it to be termed that way. I rather want it to be thought of as a possibility. This could come about in this way. So, ways to hedge against this, in my mind, would be actually going short equity markets when there is this massive level of confidence, and more so when there's this massive level of, pushing people and a narrative into the market as much as possible. Whenever you have CNBC or Market Watch or Market Insider and all of these media channels out there, whenever you have them going extremely bullish, I would suddenly say that it's probably time to think that they're going to pull the rug out from under you at that point. So, all this being said, if you guys like this kind of content, just consider leaving your comments down below in the comments section. I would like to hear your thoughts on this as well, and I hope to see you again at some point in the future.